Hey YouTube, it's Brandon from VK Milling and Hardwoods here in not quite so sunny and quite chilly Cleveland, Tennessee. And it's not my normal kind of video, but my drive in from home to the shop this morning is about all the time I've got today to actually do a video. But I just kind of wanted to recap what my week has been like so far. So let's see. I've gone through 15 blades. I'm out of decent blades. So I'm having to use resharpened 4-degree blades to cut pine, and that drives me nuts. So that's one thing. Next is I should have had 6 loads of logs brought in this week. I've only had 2.5 loads. And out of the 2.5 loads, a part of 1 load is more or less unbillable material, simply due to the fact that the logs have so much stress in them that as I cut them, you can hear them popping. And I couldn't get a single straight board out of any of them. So that was a waste of time. The battery in my truck has died twice. 3 times. Home, work, home. Yeah, 3 times now. For no apparent reason. I charged the battery, tested the alternator, everything's fine. Battery just, for one reason or another, for a couple of days decided not to hold charge. But it's working fine now. In terms of the sawmill, so this kind of stuff that drives me nuts. I maintain my sawmill meticulously, and yet things still go wrong. So my control box for the saw head operations shorted out, tripped a breaker, had to well, let me rephrase. Shorted out, tripped the breaker, and in doing so pressed the blade into a log while it was not running and bit the blade before it raised it back up and bent it again. So I had to crack open the control box, looked inside of that, and sawdust everywhere on the inside of it, fouling all the contacts. So I had to blast all of that stuff out of there. In the process of doing that, I noticed a little piece of black plastic laying in the control box. No idea what it went to, looked around, didn't see anything obvious, so I set it in my toolbox and left it there for a little bit. A little while later, the toggle switch that moves my debarker in and out decided to stop working, and so I had to pull that out and do a repair on that, which is where that little black plastic piece went. Had to glue that back on, and then tape that back up so that it would actually function. So then sorry. So then, yesterday I was operating the controls, my hydraulics, and it started to sound a little grindy. What's going on? So I pull the top of the hydraulic box off and open up the hydraulic pump and look in, and there's virtually no hydraulic fluid in there. And I just checked that and filled it up 25, maybe 30 hours ago. So I filled that back up to where it's supposed to be. and then went back to operations. Everything was running fine for a little while. Went to load a log. The log raised no problem. Went to use the clamp, raised it. As it started to go up, I watched a stream of hydraulic fluid go shooting out off to the side. Great. Fortunately for me, there wasn't a break in the line and the connectors weren't broken. The only problem was that the connector for the hose, they are two nuts that screw together, and the nut that actually tightens down onto the hose was just loose. How it got as loose as it was, I have no idea. But I just had to tighten that one back down, and then I went around and checked all the hoses on that. Everything was good. Refilled hydraulic fluid, no problem. So that's the sawmill stuff. Secondary stuff. I had 2 different stacks of material that I've been working on topple on me, so I've had to restack them multiple times, which, sucks. And I had to actually pull out my poly strap, so I stacked them or restacked them and then ratchet strapped them down to really tighten them in together, and then poly strapped each end of the stack, and now they're fine. Just got those out of the way. I've gotten the forklift stuck 3 times in places that it's never been stuck before, because it's rained so much here that the water table is essentially full, and water is not really draining out or draining down like it's supposed to drain. And so all over the place, like there's a lake right over there at the golf course, and you can see that it's several feet above where it normally is. And over by my in-laws' house, there's a small creek that even when the water level's low, you can jump across the creek if you get a good running start. That creek right now has completely flooded about a 2.5 acre plot of land, and all the houses that are along the creek, their backyards are flooded as well. So the water, or at least the ground out back, is so saturated with water that it hasn't been draining out. And so places where I normally can drive the forklift around without any issues whatsoever are underwater. The water's loosened the dirt and the gravel, etc. And so the forklift's been getting stuck in places where it's never been stuck before. As a secondary issue to that, because the groundwater is so high right now and our building is on septic, the water using utilities around here, so the toilets and the sinks, aren't draining out as well as they should be, because the septic is backed up a little bit because the drain field is full. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. So yeah, it's been quite fun. On top of that, the help that I was supposed to have this week in order to try to get this order completed, I don't have, and may not have for another couple of days. So that's epically fun. And so I'm about to go in here now and get set up for the day and start going. Almost missed an appointment this morning, which would have sucked. But the temperature has dropped and it's windy, so it's like 31 degrees out here right now, which, you know, to a lot of you all watching my videos, you come from further up north, you come from Sweden, you name it, and, you know, 31 degrees Fahrenheit, basically 0 degrees Celsius, is not that big of a deal to you guys. But 31 degrees here, with the humidity and the wind chill factor added in, feels more like it's 10 degrees. I've got on long johns, blue jeans, 2 shirts, plus my fleece, and I'm still cold outside. And I'm, you know, cold natured. I love the cold, but I'm still cold outside. Then on top of that, my niece has strep for, I think, the 3rd or 4th time in less than a year. My nephew's been coughing a lot. And so I think that I'm catching some of what they have, which is why my throat is very hoarse and I've been coughing. And then on top of that, I got a baby due in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. So I've been at home with my wife. She has done the lion's share of the work in prepping the house for, you know, this new addition. But I've also had stuff that needs to get done. And so, you know, that's taking up video editing time and everything else. But, you know, there are worse things in life than losing some video editing time because you have a baby on the way. Yeah, I don't really have a complaint about that. But yeah, it's funny. I showered last night when I got home, and yet I still smell like hydraulic fluid. So that just goes to show you. I'm going to, oh yeah, one last thing. So in the 2 years that I've been here at this property, the wind always comes from the south and blows north. And previously, I had my sawmill turned in such a way that as I would mill, I would be facing south, which would cause the sawdust and everything to blow back at me. But the reason I had it that way is so that the loading arms on the mill would be closest to my log pile. So there was actually reasoning for it. Finally, I got tired of having the sawdust blowing at me constantly and decided to flip the mill around, which is working out fine. I mean, I have the forklift to move logs and stuff. But I flipped the mill around so that the sawdust would actually blow away from me instead of at me. Yesterday, all the wind was blowing from the north going south. I was eating a face full of sawdust on every single cut yesterday. I've yet to see the wind blow from the north to the south across this property until yesterday. It's one of those things where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But yeah, so I'm going to get inside here. If I could squeeze out a few spare minutes today, I might make a short video. It's not going to be anything new or special. It would pretty much be the same as the previous 2 videos. Oh, yeah. 2 other things. The drive belt that goes from the motor to the gear that moves the saw head forward and backward, for one reason or another, that keeps getting looser. and I've had to stop and tighten that up multiple times this week. And the belt on my alternator was so loose that it was flapping and actually slapping the housing like really hard. And so I had to stop in the middle of cutting up a cant to adjust the tension on my alternator on the mill. And then there's kind of a little bit of a complaint in, I ordered new belts for my wheels, my bandsaw wheels, from Wood-Mizer, and they are the B57s, but it seems that they are a little bit longer than what the belts that I had been getting from them previously were. So much so that usually a brand new belt, you slip it on and then you actually have to force it onto the wheel. You had to put some effort into it to get it onto the wheel. Now it's a little loose in there and it slaps as the wheel spins to help clear out sawdust. Well, these belts are just a bit longer and they will just about slip right on with no pressure or anything. And because of that, sawdust, specifically pine dust, has been building up underneath the belt on the wheels and causing really intense vibration in the housing, as well as really intense fluttering in the blades. So every single time I change a blade out, I'm having to pull the wheels off of, or pull the belts off of the wheels, and then go in with my Leatherman and actually chip out the sawdust from that groove on the drive side wheel. It's not happening on the idle side, it's happening on the drive side. And so I'm having to clean all that stuff out. Now, to make sure that I'm not crazy, I actually pulled both sets of belts that I had on there previously out of the shop and put them on there, and they were tight like they were supposed to be, but a little loose in the slot, and ran for a little bit with those, no buildup whatsoever underneath it. So I don't know what's going on. I really don't want to have to order new belts again because they might have the same issue, but it might be something that I need to do. I don't know yet. But yeah, so I'm going to go in here and make a pot of coffee and go out back and wash off the mill to get whatever residue and dust and dirt and debris is off of it or on it, get it off, and then grease up my fittings and hose down my chains with transmission fluid and get back to cutting. And we'll see you guys on the next one.